I am on a quest to beat every game for the Nintendo Gamecube. Every single one. However, each game is chosen at random by this horrendous wheel, so we are never certain what's coming next. My name is Rami, and this is my quest to beat the entire Gamecube library. Game number 9 is Evolution Snowboarding. Released in 2002, it was both developed and published by Konami. Now, this may be a sports game of sorts, but son, this ain't your grandpappy snowboarding game. It's a mashup of snowboarding and brawler as you use various combat skills and weapons to fight enemies on the slopes. It also has a heavy metal soundtrack with artists such as Slipknot and Killswitch Engage blasting in the background while you pummel some fools. Now that you have an idea of what to expect, let's dive in. Alright, this is probably gonna get copyrighted, this. We're treated to the world's longest intro video and some very loud Slipknot tunes. So edgy, so gritty, so long. Once we reached the menu, the only choice on offer was Evolution Mode, a fancy name for the story, so we'll need to beat the final stage of that. We need to make our own custom character here, and I went with what is becoming the traditional name for this challenge, Human. You can change your character's body type, and this has a small impact on stats, with bulkier builds offering more defense and leaner ones offering more speed. You can also pick your gender. I just went for a lean, speedy boy. I couldn't figure out the difference between regular and goofy stance, so I stuck with the regular.
There's a malfunction in the security system. The prisoners in cell number 5 are making a commotion.
All the cutscenes in this game are cute little comic book style. The story is incredibly vague, but we're told that we're the last hope and we need to escape the prison. Obviously the only sensible way to do that is snowboarding, baby. I enjoy games like this where they just throw you into the action and give you some time to play with the controls without needing to worry about defeat. As far as the snowboarding goes, it's pretty standard. We can move side to side, alter our acceleration, jump, grind, and do tricks. This opening section is pretty flat, so you'll see more of those things in a bit. What separates this game from the rest though is the combat. We're nearly always being attacked by hordes of enemies, and we need to punch, kick, and grab our way through them. It's a little clunky, and the way the character is glued to his board just feels really jarring when you kick, but it certainly keeps things engaging. On top of that, there are various weapons, like this chain that I found. Picking these up makes us a force to be reckoned with. They have a durability limit, but as long as they last, the enemies just get deleted. The intro is very long and mostly flat, so I just worked on getting a feel for combat. Near the end, I also realized we could charge a super boost, shown with a red aura on the board, that makes you extra fast when released. Go man, go! Woo! Freedom! Now that the game has begun for real, we unlock stage 1, Boomtown. Again, the story is almost nothing, but we need to rescue real-life snowboarder Danny Cass and some others along the way, and we seem to be fighting some eco-terrorists who are trying to cause global warming. Just a pretty typical day in the life, you know? From here we have a decent amount of freedom. We can tackle a myriad of missions to train our stats and progress the story, edit our rider and their clothing. There are tutorials to have a look at if needed, and we'll also be able to switch our rider later on. By far the weirdest feature is the catalog. It's just a marketing section. It shows brands and gear that's seen in the game, and the whole thing's just really funny to me. You too could dress like Human. I do like the tutorial system though. It's nice and simple, just explanations in text of what you might need to know. The main thing I learned here is that you can switch your stance to change which direction you're facing on the board. This affects the power of your punches and kicks, and you can only use certain weapons based on the direction you're facing. With my knowledge topped up, I just needed to invest the starter points in Human stats, and I went for a mix of attack and defense. With all that done, it was time for my first mission. You could do these in whatever order you please, and you just need to beat a few of them to unlock the area boss. I went for your bog standard time attack here, just reach the goal before time runs out, and score higher the quicker you are. Alright, here we go. You've probably already got a pretty good sense of what this game's about. Complete various missions while brawling with never-ending hordes of dudes, and Slipknot hammers your eardrums. This first stage was a good chance to try some tricks and get a bit fancier. I tried using a grind rail, but my stats were so abysmally low that I could not stay on for more than a few seconds. Jumps also felt a bit underwhelming, but these both improved as our stats climbed. I continued to collect checkpoints to increase my time limit, and began taking advantage of the aforementioned Super Boost. You charge it up by holding the button, and the bottom right indicates how powerful it's going to be. It makes a huge difference already, and that's with a pleb character like mine, definitely my favourite aspect of the game. I reached the goal and cashed in a bronze rank. I know, hold your applause. The better you perform, the more points you earn for character progression. So while we don't need gold to beat this one, it certainly helps for power scaling. Next up was a mission to gather 6 keys and reach the goal. These are dotted around the map as you board, and there are more than 6, which gives a little bit of wiggle room. I managed to snag 9 of them and still only scored a bronze. Let's go, dude! Mission 3 was just kill 4 thugs before reaching the goal. You get a bunch of weapons on these stages, in this instance a baseball bat and a chain. The chain is definitely the best weapon so far, the range on it is just so invaluable. One thing though is if we take any damage, our weapons are lost. With how useful they are, this is a really big punishment, so that kept me on my toes with both combat and avoiding the obstacles. Honestly, the enemies are surprisingly crafty. They were dodging my attacks, so I only reached the bare minimum of 4. Still, good enough is good enough. It's Human's turn!
Hey, you traitorous rat! Not only have you deserted, you have made a lot of trouble! Your big mistake was to choose my patch first! I'll cut you up with my chainsaw!
Okay. It's boss time. Even though there are 10 missions in Blast Town, we only needed to complete 3 of our choice to get this first battle. So now I need to defeat this absolute behemoth wielding a chainsaw, and I must do so before reaching the goal. Things started well. I had a baseball bat and I was racking up the hits. I did miss a chain sadly, and then he styled on me by knocking an explosive barrel into me, and that removed my bat. This guy's got some moves. I managed to snag another one though, and I mowed through the thugs. I noticed with many of the bosses that they really slingshot their movement. Often they're just too far behind or too far in front of you for you to actually fight them. This can be really frustrating if time's running low. He did eventually catch up though, and with a chain and bat in hand, I went to town. I will say the physics in this game had me laughing a few times. You just feel so weightless and the momentum feels totally off too. After a few well-placed kicks to the head, Boomer went boom, and our first boss was defeated. In addition to a buttload of points for Human, I unlocked Danny Cass for use in regular missions, and this was a game changer. Finally, I unlocked Stage 2, Falls and Creeks. Unlike Boomtown, that was mostly flat browns and industrial greys, Falls and Creeks is much more visually pleasing. Snowboarding on actual snow? What a world. I kicked it off with another key collecting mission, and this time I needed a grand total of 9. I did the usual brawling with a baseball bat, a couple of fancy jumps here and there, and I yoinked the keys that I could find. I also found a couple of collectibles just floating in the air. There was a film reel that unlocked a video to watch, and a few items of clothing. This is all just extra fluff for completionists, and I reckon you would need to grind these stages for hours on end if you wanted to find everything. By the time I reached the end, I only had 7 keys though, and this led to my first mission failure. This time they were way more sparse, and I was going to need to get much more creative with my pathing if I wanted to find and collect enough. After several attempts of looking for possible alternate paths to take as there just weren't enough keys, I found a fork leading into an obfuscated cave. This took us on a scenic top path, and there were loads of keys up there. After all that, I finished with a luxurious 12 keys, and still got bronze rank. Sheesh! It was at this point that I went back into the menu and changed my rider, and holy, Danny Cass is cracked, dude. I really like this action figure aesthetic for character selection, it's really cute. So now we've gone from no stats to a million stats. It's seriously night and day. We're faster, tankier, hit harder, jump higher, and we even smell better. What a Chad. At this point I was shredding through thugs and made mincemeat out of this mission. Surely with my new OP character I ranked gold, right? Nope, bronze. I was really enjoying playing as Danny here. His boost just feels so insane. Surely they wouldn't make me play as Human again after letting me feel the power of the Cass, right? Right? Oh wait, you have
you entered my mountainous region?
You have to fight the bosses with Human.
Everything here belongs to me. The waterfalls, the forests, the mountains themselves. Everything is mine. So I can do whatever I like. Filthy traitor. Leave my region now. If you don't go, I'm prepared to kill you out of hand.
So yeah, you must use your own custom character on boss stages, and that did not feel good. We had this weird contrast where in regular missions, I could use a real-life snowboarder and be super OP, but when it came to bosses, I felt super weak and I got my ass kicked. I get where they were coming from here. You can't steamroll the game as you must train your character up in each stage, but all this did was artificially extend the game. This boss was called Fool, and she has a giant boomerang for a weapon. She keeps her distance most of the time, and this made getting a hit on her really tricky, and my first time around, I just simply ran out of time. I went back to the menu and I cashed in the huge amount of points I'd racked up on Human. With my newly buffed stats, it was time to try again. Fool was much more annoying than Boomer. Since she has a ranged attack, she stays away from you as much as possible, and I would often go from behind her to in front. Either way, she was bonking me on the head with that pesky boomerang. I did find a chain early on, and this would have been a game changer, but sadly I failed to jump, and in getting reset onto the stage, the chain was lost. The voice acting in this game is also really not great. Okay. After Prince of Persia last week, this was a noticeable departure from having Yuri Lowenthal acting up a storm. With plenty of time to spare, I found both a bat and chain, I absolutely tore through her HP, and then once the final hit was dealt, she turned into a popsicle. Human once again came out on top. Level 3 was Bat Castle. The usual sort of missions were done here: key collecting, thug killing, and time trialing. Generally it seems that the initial 4 missions available are pretty consistent, and it's only once the boss is beaten that you can go back and do more of the varied ones. At first this stage seemed visually boring with a pretty dull forest, but once you reach the castle proper, you fight hordes of vampire looking dudes and snowboard, or maybe in this case brickboard, through the structure itself. We even had this awesome jump through a chandelier, and the level ends in a spooky little town. Definitely one of the better looking stages in an otherwise fairly drab game. It's just going to send me in with Human here.
Welcome to my castle. Judging by your rebellious nature, the brainwashing didn't take hold.
This game is so weird, dude. Now we're fighting boss 3, Batty, and he is invisible most of the time. I was expecting some sort of vampire guy with invisibility powers, but what we got was just a weirdo in camo. The whole invisibility thing really didn't matter much. What was a problem though was that he kept throwing bombs at me. I nearly beat him on my first try, but eventually I just ran out of health and I took an L. Next time around though, I found a chain and a bat, the classic combo, and I went completely ham. This time the castle collapsed on him, and I assume he was crushed. Excellent. My next new rider I unlocked was Bjorn Linus, and it was time to head to stage 4. I took Bjorn for a spin here, and he's cool. A little slower than Danny, but he has a crazy high jump stat. Shogun City is fairly nice visually. It's a night-based level and involves a lot of rooftops of varying heights to jump between. The enemies were extra aggressive in this one. They wielded katanas and they dealt huge damage, so I had to be very sneaky with my dodges. I did the standard keys, time trial, and thug killing combo, and then I kept on racking up an impressive number of bronze ranks. How does he do it?
Right there, intruder! Your battles with the ninjas was quite excellent, but you have committed foul deeds on my territory, and the penalty for that is death!
Boss 4 was Shogun, and this may have been the most difficult fight in the game. He has the ability to teleport next to you whenever he wants, and without warning. He also fires these orange dragons at you, and he spammed them way more than seemed fair. Add to this that he wields a katana and does insane damage. I was only able to hit him once or twice before he would teleport, and you still have thugs piling on top of you at the same time, and this was a recipe for disaster. The other bosses felt pretty fair and only took me a couple of attempts, but this one, oh boy. During my travels, I had occasionally found some clothing items. These gave teeny tiny stat upgrades, so I dressed Human up in some new threads. I also spent my remaining points to try and increase my chances in any way that I could. It didn't work. This guy is insanely tough, and I knew that I would need better stats if I wanted to stand a chance. So with that, it was time to grind. I liked how Bjorn handles, so he was my choice of pro rider to try and rack up some silvers and maybe the ever elusive gold rank. I played a few of the Boomtown missions that unlocked after beating Boomer and racked up some decent points for stat increases. I also tried a new kind of mission on Falls and Creeks where I needed to collect a sufficient amount of points before the goal. On this stage, this was in the form of rare metals denoted by coloured rings, and these quickly became my favourite kind of mission. There was also one where I needed to use a half pipe to collect a bunch of floating koosh balls and score points. weird. I won't be showing you every stage or anything, but I just wanted to demonstrate a few of the other objectives you can pursue. My overall impression of the game at this point was generally pretty favourable. It's visually a little drab, I'm not a huge fan of hearing the same 4 Slipknot songs on repeat, and I think we'll have more fun when we get to SSX Tricky, but this was a decent laugh to stream, and if it tickles your interest, check it out. I cashed in my points and spent another 20 minutes grinding the Shogun fight, but still couldn't pin him down. Between teleportation and the dragon attack, this fight's just kinda nuts. I died many times, but I learned a little bit with each. My attack and defense were just too low at this point to be able to handle the fight, so some major grinding was in order this time. I decided I'd try and get good enough stats for the rest of the game even after beating Shogun, so my new home was this point collecting stage on Back Castle. I found this one fairly fun, just trying to improve my score each time. It was also a good opportunity to get a stronger grasp on the controls.
2,000 years later.
After a very long training session, I boosted my attack and defense, and it was time to try again and finally put this fight to rest. Shogun dealt a lot of damage to me initially, and probably thought he had me on the ropes, but after boarding across some rooftops, I found my secret weapon.
I'm afraid not.
What do you mean? Kunai with chain? What is this?
With the chain in my hands and his attack pattern learned, I was finally ready to end this. When his health was low, I threw all caution to the wind and I went on the all-out offensive. Come on, dude, get me out of here. Yeah! Finally, dude. I was so happy to have this done. He commits Sudoku and we got a butt ton of points for Human. I had a new rider here, JP Walker, to play with, and he had a really high top speed. Stage 5 was the Hong Kong city of Kowloon, and may have been the best level visually. We had to ride through the city covered in snow and navigate our way through traffic, ride along a series of neon signs, and engage in a hefty amount of property damage. I won't be showing the basic missions much anymore, as they're all much of a muchness, and I've already shown off pretty much the full scope of the gameplay by now. Just know that I was still racking up all the bronzes, don't you worry about that.
Hey, you're the strongest kid around, right? But I'm still the baddest on the block. So you are damned to hell.
This boss was called Ron, and he's a weird electric skeleton for reasons, I guess. Again, this game is not exactly Shakespeare. The big struggle here is he's essentially Blanca from Street Fighter. He covers himself in lightning, and if you try to attack him, even with a weapon while this is up, you'll take massive damage. I went back and did some more grinding, more or less playing any mission that I had not completed up until this point. Feeling more prepared, I sent another attempt, and this time just decided to play as safely as possible until I could find the all-important chain. By the time I found one, I was still almost full health, and now I was ready to use the range advantage to avoid his electricity. Chain's all you need. Get a chain, win the game. This pretty much became my mantra for the rest of the playthrough. No matter what the stage, find a chain as quickly as possible. After its durability ran out, I nabbed a spike bat and I was able to crush this stupid skeleton once and for all. Stage 6 was pretty bland. It's called Creatures Inn, and it's supposed to be some sort of dinosaur evolution themed area, I think, but it was almost entirely plain white terrain and just a bunch of rocks. I think Falls and Creeks was a much better use of snow by having a contrast with the water and the trees. The only cool section here was a few dinosaur rib cages, but compared to what Chirinko Hero did with the same theme a couple of weeks back, this felt like the weakest stage by far. In contrast to this though, the boss is completely out of left field and possibly the weirdest one yet.
Thus far and no further, foolish knaves. By controlling the environment as we wish, we ensure a bright future for our race. You foolish oafs cannot understand this need. Those who are subject to control are doomed to extinction, like the dinosaurs of the past. We can even bring the dinosaurs back to life. Those who cannot understand must perish. You will be imprisoned in ice for an eternity of extinction.
We literally, no one knows what's going on. Like, literally no one has any clue, including me, so don't even try and understand what's happening. So, yeah, no idea what the deal is here, but we're fighting a double boss called Creatures. Things seemed a little hairy at first, with them both team attacking me, but I soon found my beautiful boy, the Chain. With the ability to hit them both at the same time and the range advantage, I was just shredding them. I did almost die right at the end, and that leads me to one more mechanic I've not mentioned. I need chicken! Where's the chicken at? Chicken! In classic Konami style, health is recovered by collecting chicken drumsticks, which is always cute. The bosses are eaten by a dinosaur, because of course they are. And with that, we're on to the second to last stage. This one is called Battlefront, and it's basically the outskirts of the eco-terrorist base. The enemies often have guns here, and we see lines of tanks driving below us. At this point, I was pretty good at the game. I was boosting a ton and doing a lot more tricks than before. You could literally beat the game without doing a single trick if you wanted to, but they help you rack up more points for your custom character. In both speed and score here, I was cooking, and at long last, your boy locked in a gold medal. I am now the best player in the world at this game. Don't at me. Alright, second to last boss.
Stop, most honored sir. Your bravery in action has caused us to suffer heavy casualties. To show our loyalty to the organization, and for the sake of the peaceful repose of the souls of our comrades, I will send your brave soul on an express train to hell.
That's a big dude! Battalion is a gigantic man with a Gatling gun, though his aim might leave a lot to be desired. My attack stat was really high now, so I was utterly destroying him with the spike bat. If that wasn't enough, I even found another one. I'm seeing double here. 4 bats! After giving him a free cranial adjustment, Battalion also fell before our might. With the 7th boss defeated, we're now at the final stage, Big Core. There is no final boss as such. Instead, we need to reach and destroy the core of the terrorist base while surviving an absolute gauntlet. Now, I'd say I've been decently complimentary about this game until now, but this last stage can go do one. There are turrets all over the place, and they have unavoidable homing bullets. There are exploding bombs that fall from the sky, highly damaging mines littering the floor, sometimes a combination of all of the above, and to top it all off, I was still being attacked by hordes of dudes with spiked bats. Ay ay ay. I have 1 HP. I'm dead. Oh, this is gonna be aggro, I can tell. I'm all for a challenge, but this is just terrible game design in my opinion. Not once throughout the game were there turrets, mines, or any other of these mechanics, so the player has never been taught to expect them, how to deal with them, and they just come completely out of left field. And seriously, the bullets have homing properties, and I'm on a frickin' snowboard here. There is not much I can do to dodge. I did have a better go the second time around, and I made some progress into this cool Tron-like tunnel. As much as I hate this level, it's pretty great visually. I was dodging out of my skull here, both bombs and dudes, but of course, more turrets had to ruin the fun. I hate it here. After about 10 minutes, I finally made some progress, but this is where the real bullshit begins. There are just wall-to-wall turrets everywhere now. If you boost, you can somewhat dodge the bullets, but every time you get shot, you lose your boost, so you can see the problem. I somehow made it through with decent health, and I was starting to have hope, but no. More turrets. This is brutal, man. I thought that perhaps if I had just a little bit more speed and defense, I could find my way through that section, so I hopped back into one last grind session. I was pretty annoyed at this point. I'd enjoyed the game up until now, and even fights like Shogun seemed reasonable with some stat boosting and practice. But this is just cheap. It honestly feels like they had an intern slap together a final level by just throwing some turrets at every available surface, rather than fight an actual cool last boss. This wasn't enough to ruin the game or anything, but I hope you can see where I'm coming from here. An hour later and I was on the best run of my life. I could see the end, and then... Please! Game design, bro. Dude, they drop a homing explosion on your head. That was the finish line. That was beating the game. This is so fucking horrible.
Oh, man! Can you believe it? It was right there!
Dick move, devs. Dick move. With the finish line only an inch away, I had a new burst of hope, so I pressed on though. Sadly, I was back to getting blitzed by the turrets. I want to shout out to those who were in Twitch chat on that day. You really helped motivate me here when I was getting tilted by this dumb level. After nearly 2 hours of attempts, I finally got the God Run. I was grabbing more chicken than Sandor Clegane. and I was using the boost as aggressively as possible to leave the human enemies in my dust. For the first time ever, I was at full HP going into the Tron section, and I dared to dream. I took some shots in the first turret section, but still had more than half of my health bar remaining. I took an intentional out of bounds to avoid the turrets and bombs, and did some very solid dodging in the second and more awful turret tunnel. Slowed down just enough to avoid that sneaky final bomb, and at long last... That should be it there, right? Yes! Thank God, dude. That's a hard final level, man.
Over the point where the massive explosion was reported.
Are there any survivors?
All I see is snowy terrain. Wait, HQ! HQ! Looks like some survivors. There's a snowboard being waved at us.
Send in the retrieval squad and bring them home.
Roger that.
Let me see those sweet, sweet credits. GG. Holy, that was tough, man. That final level was truly evil. I nearly lost hope a few times, but chat encouraged me, I persevered, and at long last we were able to put this one to bed. And that concludes Evolution Snowboarding, a very weird and wacky game. It took me 4 hours and 8 minutes to beat this one, with a lot of that time being spent on grinding and the final stage. I gave this one a 6 for difficulty at the time. I actually went ahead and bumped that up to a 7 while writing this video, just from reliving the hell that was that final level. Enjoyability, I gave it a 6. It was fun to stream, and some of the ridiculously over-the-top boss fights were entertaining, but this is not the sort of game I would come back to in a hurry. If you made it to the end, then please enjoy a sneak peek at what I'll be playing next time. As per my challenge's rules, every 10th game I can make a free pick of my choosing. For game number 10, I logged in Sonic Adventure DX, an absolute childhood favourite of mine, but one that many don't believe stood the test of time. We'll see how it holds up next week. Thank you very much for watching. Please consider liking and subscribing as they help the channel grow. I look forward to seeing you on the next one. Bye bye.